a b-boy. From the old to the new, still a b-boy. Too bold for the school, still a b-boy. East coast to the west, b-boys worldwide, we supposed to be blessed, still a b-boy.
This week, B-boys and B-girls, we are heading to Queensbridge to talk about one of the best MCs to ever pick up the MIC. And I'll make the case for that later. He came on the scene as Nasty Nas. His dad named him Nasir. His friends called him Nas. Yes, top 10 Nas songs. Joining me in tonight's roundtable, as always, Raven Hunter's in the house. My man, the Hurricane. Kane Diz Mega. All right. Let's do this. Let's talk about some Nas. This was a tough list. I changed mine a lot. And I'm going to start at number 10. I'm going to 2003's Godson album, which when I revisited it was better than I remembered. It's a really good album. And this song, it was like cancer. I kept trying to get rid of it and it would go back on the list. Like cancer you can't beat. Maybe that's a bad metaphor. But this kept popping back on my list, and that's I Can. It just gets my heartstrings. It's dope on the real lyrics. I love the chorus with the kids. The piano sample is actually from Beethoven, so you don't see a lot of Beethoven sampling in hip hop. And Nas is dropping some knowledge for the kid. This one is just hits me every time I hear that hook, and it just hits my soft spot, and it just had to make my list. I tried to get it off, it just wouldn't go. So number 10, I Can. Raven, what is your number 10?
All right, my number 10, I also was on the Godson, his 6 LP. I went with Last Real Brother Alive, produced by Ron Browse. It's a really good storytelling track. Nas is really good at telling stories, but this is all like real shit. And, just about beef and life. And it's one of the few songs, like, I remember Godson was like my favorite Nas album when it came out. And revisiting it, I like it less than I used to. It's mainly the production. And they tried to record it to be like stereo, like some new stereo hi-fi music. And it sounds too crisp to me.
Mm-hmm.
It takes away from the grittiness that Nas always had in his music prior to that. Yeah, I went with Last Real Brother Alive.
No, that's a dope song. Like I said, this album is really good. I kind of forgot how good it was. It had been a minute since I listened to it. All right, Kane, what is number 10 on your list?
I got All Bad off of King's Disease 1 featuring Anderson .Paak. Those are two of my favorite artists. I love Anderson .Paak. I love Nas. And they just blend so perfectly in that song. The content of the song is we all felt that way, like about breaking up with a girl and, what did I do wrong? And, could I have done better? And that whole thing. And it's so relatable. So that was my number 10.
Yeah, those 3 King's Disease albums, they show Nas is still on top of his game freaking 30 years later.
And I didn't even when King's Disease 3 came out, I was like, what's 1 and 2? I wasn't even really up on it anymore.
Yeah.
So I had to go back and listen to it because everybody was talking about,
right.
Oh, he's back to Nas, he's back to this. And I was like, I've obviously missed the first 2, but yeah, I really like it.
Yeah, I do too. I love that whole trilogy. Diz, what is number 10 on your Nas list?
Number 10 for me is Locomotive from Life is Good. I love the way the album starts, man. I love the way he rhymes in his lyrics. He's so descriptive in it, just another day for Nas, and it's just so impressive. And the album impressed me, but I just can't forget the way that record starts, and I just love that song, Locomotive.
Nice. That's perfect. It's like we plan it, because my number 9 from Life is Good, Locomotive. You got Large Professor on the verses. You got this beat by No ID that is amazing, which I want to talk about. The mix of subway sounds, the wheels on the tracks, the whistling of the horn, it coming to a screeching halt is all mixed in with the beat, but it's done flawlessly and perfectly. It blows my mind every time I listen to this beat, the way they mix these subway sounds in with the beat. It's genius. And as always, Nas drops dope lyrics. it's just amazing. It had to make my list because of that. It's just a sneaky good song from a sneaky good album. This Life is Good album was also from this era of Nas, probably his best. So I also went with Locomotive as my number 9. What was your 9, Raven?
I also went with Locomotive for my number 9.
It's crazy.
Oddly enough,
For real, people, we don't plan. We do not
yeah,
know.
that
We do.
that is insane. Actually, something like
Happens.
that should always seems to happen. But
Yeah.
Life is Good really is an underrated Nas album. Because I really didn't like what was it, Street Disciples or whatever, that double album he put out, and he started slipping, but then Life is Good I think brought it back. It was better than what, Black Rose or whatever the other one was, Hip Hop is Dead. So I also, the beats and the lyrics, just like you said, like you both said. So Locomotive.
Number 9, Kane. You got Locomotive?
No,
Oh,
no.
man.
I gotta Get Down off of God's Son. I love the James Brown sample that he puts in there. And I know it's, the popular song off the album, the first song off the album, but that Get Down, like, and samples the beat in it. When even in his verses, he's using that sample. I told everybody get down. Like
Right.
I really like that Godson album also.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Get Down was on my honorable mention. That was one that was flirting with number 10 with I Can. Number 9, Diz, what you got?
I got Testify from Untitled. I love that song because it's really vintage, it's old school. It reminds me of some old records my parents would play back when I was a kiddo. I can't even put my finger on it. I don't know if it was sampled off of an old school song or whatever. It's a slow jam. He's just kind of quietly rapping on that one. But that one always pulls out some emotion out of me to Testify. So it's a great track.
All right, number 8. And you said you didn't like this album, and I agree it wasn't his best. But there was one song from 2004's Street Disciple that had to make my list, kind of like I Can. This one just always makes me smile, but for different reasons. And that is Bridging the Gap, which is featuring his dad. So mixing that blues with hip hop, but it's done really well. It really flows together. And if you think about it, you go back 100 years, blues and jazz was the hip hop of its day. And the way they mesh them is great. And the lyrics, great as always. He's a storyteller at heart. The video is cool with him and his dad. And in the background, they must be in front of a green screen. And it's just all these different pictures of like Nas as a kid with his dad, like, playing his horn. And it just makes me happy, really. Everything that it stands for makes me happy. So I could not leave it off my list. Bridging the Gap, love that track. Number 8, Raven.
Bridging the Gap definitely made my honorable mentions. That one was, when I said I got mad, that was one of the tracks I was angry that I couldn't fit in here. But I went on to the third album, I Am, from '99 with Hate Me Now featuring Sean Combs, produced by Trackmasters. That song was fucking everywhere when that album came out. And that beat, to this day, I just fucking love that beat. Even, Puffy doing the Puffy thing in the track still works. And I can still put that track on and just enjoy it because that shit goes hard. So I went with Hate Me Now.
I'm so glad you brought that up because that was another one I wanted to make it, but I cut it because of Puffy. But the beat is amazing. And I love it when Nas is talking about like, should I just give you my cars and my house? And
right.
Yeah, I'm glad someone brought that up because that was definitely on my honorable mentions. Number 8, Kane, what you got?
Let There Be Light off Hip Hop is Dead, featuring Trey Williams. I love the chorus and the message to the song. To let there be light in your life. You might be in the hood, and that's kind of what the song is talking about is, you're seeing all this bad shit, but like let yourself be a light to, your surroundings and just a real positive message.
We are on 8. Diz, what you got?
Accident Murderers. Life is Good. I love the beat, like they just go hard on it. But the message is kind of crazy because it's just about like accidentally shooting someone. And Rick Ross does his thing. He sounds pretty good on it. This is about the time when Rick Ross and Nas and I would say the game were kind of holding up hip hop, a large portion of it, and they were definitely like I feel like Nas just doesn't peak or something. Like he just has these eras,
Right.
and this era, Accident Murderers, really nails what this year was about for Nas and hip hop to me in general, anyway. So I love the song, love the beat. Nobody did any wrong on this one. It's one of my favorite Accident Murderers.
And I agree. Rick Ross does bring his A game. I mean, he almost has to. He's with Nas.
Yeah.
That might be one of his better verses ever. Not that I have a deep knowledge of every song he did, but he holds his own. And that's saying a lot when you're with Nas. We're going to number 7, and I'm going back to 2002's Godson album, and I'm going with Made You Look. Dope beat. I love the Braveheart chanting in the background. It's done perfectly. And I want to talk about the guy who made this beat, Salam Remy, who you never hear that name in production, but he's been producing for over 30 years. And I looked up the number because I knew he had at least a Grammy for the Fugees' Score album, which he produced. But he's got 10 Grammys. 10 Grammys Salam Remy has. And you don't hardly ever hear his name. So I wanted to shout him out because he's the real deal, obviously. And I also want to talk about people have these best of lists, Nas, Biggie, Tupac, Jay-Z, whoever, which people always compare Nas to Jay-Z for several reasons. Same era, they had the beef. But if you're being completely honest, the lyrics, Nas is top. Storytelling ability, he's top tier. Making versatile songs about different subject matters, he's top tier. Ability to find the right beats, he's top tier. Longevity, he's top tier. I almost convinced myself that Nas might be the best rapper ever.
Mhm.
And to compare him to someone like Jay-Z is crazy to me when you really break it down. Nas hits everything, and he's an MC's MC, but at the same time, crossover casual fans find songs he likes. He makes all these different subject matters. I'm going to get off his dick now. Number 7, Raven, what do you got?
I'm gonna agree with you about Nas. He's definitely in the top 3, I think, just in terms of consistency. Just like I put Ice Cube up there as well, because consistently he had that stretch of albums where he did no fucking wrong, and Nas had a big stretch of albums where he did no wrong. And then he had a few duds, but then went right back, took the game back for a little while, all the way to the King's Disease trilogy. Like all 3 of those CDs fucking hit. And Hit Boy, that's some of the, him and Nas, it's like Nas found his medium again when he got with Hit Boy. But anyway, speaking of crossover tracks, I put Street Dreams from It Was Written 1996. It was one of the, I guess, first times people really thought of Nas as selling out from what he did. But it's such a good song. That beat is so fucking good. And it's either going to be that or like If I Ruled the World from that album that people bring up. And I always like Street Dreams a little bit more just because I really love that beat. So I went with Street Dreams.
That was on my honorable mentions. That It Written album was, no sophomore slump. I mean,
that was amazing.
Such a great album, and it'll be brought up again. I guarantee that. Kane, number 7, what do you got?
Well, I gotta say, what you were talking about, Nas's flow. I found myself going through all these albums, and I've even noticed this before about listening to Nas, that I find myself just like vibing to whatever beat. And you know what? He's rapping over it. And I'm not, it's so ingrained that I stopped listening to the words and I'm just like, oh, he's still rapping to it. Like, oh, I'm gonna pay attention to what he's saying. It's just so, yeah, ingrained to the beat. It's just so, his flow's just so perfect. It's amazing. So I just had to add that to what you said. My number 7 is Blunt Ashes from Hip Hop Is Dead. The vibe of this song, I feel like puts me right where he is. I feel like he's just sitting in his garage, chiefing a big old blunt, deep into thought about, all kinds of stuff, his life, all these all these people's lives that have done these major things, and wondering why they did these things and how they were not supported. And he's just so deep in this thought, and I felt like I could really relate to it.
Well, and that's another thing. I mean, deep lyrics. I mean, he checks every box as an MC. It's amazing. You'll get people who check these lyrical and even deep, but then they don't have crossover appeal. A high school girl who also listened to NSYNC was listening to If I Ruled the World, but yet he had, on that same album, I Gave You Power, which, hardcore heads. It's just
Right.
amazing that he can hit all these.
My number 7. Well, before I hit my number
Yeah.
7, that track that we were just talking about, Blunt Ashes, such a dope track. But you know who produced that track was NBA star Chris Webber, who had his hand in production on a couple times.
I didn't know that.
So yeah,
That's
it
crazy.
blows my mind that
No clue.
he made such a dope ass track.
Yeah, no shit.
So mine is Fried Chicken off of the Untitled album with Busta Rhymes. This album is just oozing with like culture and his past, race and everything. And him and Nas just embrace that fried chicken thing. And it's a fun song, and I love the beat. And it's just one of those other out there topics that, like, I can't believe they made a song about fried chicken, and it's so dope. It's one of my favorite songs ever, and like, I love this song, Fried Chicken, You Are My Addiction, whatever. It's a great track. It's fun, and it just shows Nas's how versatile he can be and creative, So Fried Chicken for me.
It is a fun song. Busta's talking about like it's probably gonna kill me, but I'm still gonna eat this fried chicken and shit.
That's right. Love it.
Okay, number 6, and I'm going to one of his handful of classic albums, and that's 2001 Stillmatic. This album is so damn dope, and I'm going with Rewind. More proof of his amazing storytelling ability. For those that don't know, he tells a story completely in reverse. And you can listen to this 10 times and pick new things like, oh. I mean, it's so amazing. I mean, this is proof that he's a lyrical genius, just genius. Beat by Large Professor. And the video is good too. It shows the events as he's describing it in reverse. His game is so much higher than others. And I wanted to have Rewind higher, but it's only like 2.5 minutes long. So that's how it got bumped down. But I mean, it's literally genius. It's so amazing. Rewind, Stillmatic, number 6. What about you, Raven?
I remember that song blowing my fucking mind the first time I heard that shit.
Hell yeah.
And I'm really glad you brought it up, because that was the song that I actually destroyed my paper over, because I couldn't get it on my list. But I went with Undying Love from I Am. It's the closeout track on I Am, which was his third album, and I think just as strong as his first two. That was like, that stretch of those 3 albums was nearly perfect. And Undying Love is such a dope ass storytelling song about him coming back home and finding his girl cheating on him, catching her in the act, and then just like, nah, fuck that, we're gonna go get the gun. Like, that beat is hard. It was produced by LES. And that song always stood out. That was one of the best songs on I Am, in my opinion, Undying Love.
And I don't know if people will agree with me, but I Am and Nostradamus came out in the same year. And I think there's, like, I would take I Am as 3 times better than Nostradamus. And it's weird. It had to be recorded in the same.
He was recording a double album, and like half the album leaked. So he had to do what he did. He put out the first 15 with I Am, picked his favorite songs. And then Nostradamus was kind of the other songs he could still use that hadn't been leaked, which I think some of those showed up on the lost tapes and shit later on. But yeah, it's such a different sound.
It is.
Genuine is in the album. Like, it's just such a more commercial sound. And he wanted to do the double album where it was like representing his past, like his first album and his second album, and then his future, which was representing the sound of music at the time, which unfortunately gave us Nostradamus and Uchi Wally and shit.
Right.
But it was supposed to be like the flip of a coin come out together, and then he just kind of had to split it up.
Number 6, Kane.
I got the flyest off of Stillmatic featuring AZ. Stillmatic, I had my list could be 5 songs, 6 songs from Stillmatic. Like I was like, I can't put that many songs off of one album because that album is just crazy dope.
Yep.
But anyways, in the flyest, he uses that saying at the beginning: if someone wrote a book on your life, would anybody want to read it? From the first time I heard that song, I was like, is that my life? Like, if somebody wrote a book on my life, I would want somebody, I want to live a life
Right.
that somebody would want to read. So that song, speaks to me because it's so true, We should live our lives like people want to read the book of it. And him and AZ, they've been doing stuff forever. So them just going back and forth in that third verse, it's so perfect. They're finishing their sentences and they mesh so well together because they've been working together forever.
It's a shame AZ never, blew up bigger because he's amazing and should get more credit.
Pieces of a Man's a 5 micer. Like I love that whole album.
It's a shame that he never, made it to a higher level. Diz, what is your number 6?
Number 6 from Hip Hop Is Dead. Where are they now? He just goes through and kind of gives props to all these rappers that we haven't heard from in ages. And I'm not sure I've ever heard a song like that before in my life. But I love the way he did it. Chances are one of your favorite rappers got a shout out on it. It's just so cool how he was able to get in there and just give props to these guys that came before him. And I just love the song, man. The beat's dope. It's a cool topic. It's just one of those unique, creative songs, man, from Nas. Well written.
This is bananas because we can go right into my number 5. Where are they now? It's crazy, right? This song is made for a hip hop head, and I love these type of songs, kind of like Tupac's Old School. I mean, these just get me because, like you said, he's name dropping all these artists I grew up on, the ones who, caught my attention. And I also think it's good because it might educate younger fans who don't know who Nice and Smooth and Redhead Kingpin is and all these rappers, and they might check some of these legends out. And this is another Salam Remy beat. And I also wanted to touch on, they did 3 remixes, an 80s, a 90s, and a West Coast with all these artists he was talking about, big posse tracks. He had one with all 80s artists, one with all 90s artists, and the West Coast one, which is my favorite out of them. But similar to you, Where Are They Now? Such a great song. That hits me in my heart because it just makes me reminisce about these MCs who deserve to get more love. And Nas gave him love, and he had a platform to give him love, and that's just the shit to me. So that's my number 5. Where Are They Now? Raven, what do you got?
I went to the 14th album, King's Disease 2, with EPMD 2, with EPMD and Eminem.
Yeah.
Produced by Hit Boy and the Eminem collaboration on the beat. I just hearing Nas and them together was fucking everything at that time for me. And I know it's only a couple years old, but they both go off in that song. And then you got EPMD in there. Speaking of people who don't get enough love, Eric Sermon and them do not get enough love. And just, I don't know, that song always really stood out on King's Disease 2 for me. So EPMD 2.
I agree. That's a dope song. And M goes off on that. I mean, M kills it. And you're right. It is a shame more people in this generation don't know EPMD, especially, I don't want to shit on Parrish, but Eric Sermon, all the beats he's made and careers he's responsible for. I mean, you wouldn't have a Redman and a Keith Murray and all these. Eric Sermon's is a Hall of Famer, and he should definitely get more love. Like I said, I ain't hating on Parrish, but Eric's the one who, was head and tails above. All right, Kane, number 5.
Number 5, If I Ruled the World, It Was Written, featuring Lauryn Hill. This was the first Nas song I had heard. And I was like, wow, this guy's really good. Like, let me dive in more to this album. And I just started to be blown away, and then, then Stillmatic. And then this song is what built me as a Nas fan, just to, keep listening. And and the message in it, about righting these wrongs if he ruled the world. Just a great message.
Number 5, Diz.
Number 5, Got Yourself a Gun, Stillmatic. So this was the first Nas album that I heard, and I think I just bought it because Ether was on there. And then so my this was like my first real journey into Nas, and Got Yourself a Gun was pretty much the intro beyond the Jay-Z diss. And I love the song still, man. I think it still hits pretty hard. I heard it on TV used the other day for some movie. Oh, John Wick, part 4. They actually used that song. And I was like, what a trip, man! That song is banging. It's one of my favorite Nas songs, and this was like my real introduction to Nas was pretty much Got Yourself a Gun. So I got to go with that one, Stillmatic.
And that was on my honorable mentions. I mean, another great, and the energy behind it, and the sample is used perfect. There's a little bit of story, but I'm going to 1994's Illmatic, his debut classic 5-micer. I know I heard Nas on the Main Source album live at the barbecue, but I didn't think of it. It was some rapper I had never heard. I didn't think twice. I wasn't like hearing him right away and saying he's going to be the next big thing. I didn't give him a second thought. Then in 92, there was a soundtrack for the movie Zebrahead, which a lot of people don't remember. The movie wasn't all that great. Soundtrack's scary good, though. Sneaky good, excuse me. And on there was a song by a rapper called Nasty Nas. And that song was Halftime, which also 2 years later was on his debut Illmatic. When I heard Halftime off the Zebrahead soundtrack, I was like, holy shit, this guy's amazing. I kept listening to Halftime, listening to Halftime. And when Illmatic came out, I was like, I wonder if this is that Nasty Nas guy. And when I looked at the back and saw it had the song Halftime, I was like all in. Halftime made me a fan of Nas, and I think it still holds up 30 years later. It's lyrical as hell. Once again, Large Professor on the beat. And Illmatic, just to show how amazing and 5-Mikey it is. This is just it only has, 10 or 11? 10 songs on it. And this is some of the producers who produced on his debut. Pete Rock, DJ Premier, Large Professor, Q-Tip. I mean, it's like Illmatic. It's Illmatic. So I'm going to stop my rant. But Halftime made me a Nas fan. And I still love that song. So that was my number 4. Raven, what is yours?
I went back to 99's I Am with Favor for a Favor featuring Scarface. But that's also just because I fucking love Scarface. That's another great LES beat where I think they both shine well. They did a couple of other songs together, I think, like 2 or 3 songs total, I think. But I've liked every song that Nas and Brad have been on together. It really was an excuse for me to use a moment to put Scarface on my list. So Favor for a Favor.
All right. Number 4, Kane.
So I got a question first, though, because I was wondering this listening through his albums. The beats that he has are so dope. And I'm like, does he just use a ton of people, different beats from a ton of people, or did he have somebody that he went? I know you've mentioned Large Professor a couple times, but was that his, main guy, or
No,
does he just go all over?
I think Nas just goes and finds the best. And that's why, look at producer notes on an album. Like I said with Illmatic, it's the who's who of 1994 East Coast producers. And especially once
Trackmasters did like most of the two and 3. Like there was a lot of Trackmasters on and LES.
Well, and on his second album, Dre did a beat. I mean, he's worked with the who's who. So I think he just shops for the best, where some people might. This producer did everything. This producer did everything. Right.
Well, he's picking great beats because, and it's
amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah. Right. Anyways, my number 4 is Thug's Mansion off of Godson featuring Tupac. The message of this song is why I had to put it on the list. From what I remember, didn't this song come out like right before or right after Tupac died?
No, this would have. Well, did it?
Or a couple years after.
I think it
Oh,
would
okay.
be a couple years at
Yeah,
least.
because that was
Okay.
what 2002, right? So yeah, he would have been dead like
6 years.
Oh, okay. So a while. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Just because in Tupac's verse, he's just, telling his mama that he's okay up in heaven and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's crazy that you record this verse and then you die, it's
It's proof he's alive.
yeah.
Cuba.
He's in Cuba, yeah.
Yeah, that's my number four.
No, and that's one of the few. I always have a pet peeve where I hate, usually, someone dies and then they put out, and Tupac is the worst case, just put out all this music of stuff that wasn't good enough when he was alive to put out. And I always hate on that. But his verse in that, it's one of the handful of post-death songs that I think really work well. It seems like he's in the studio with Nas. Doesn't sound pieced together, which a lot of, like Eminem and 50 Cent did songs with Tupac, and it sounds like just copy and paste, fit them in.
Right.
This one sounds like they were there together working on it. So I agree. Super dope song. 4. What is your 4, Diz?
Daughters from Life is Good.
Oh, man.
Producer No ID. What can you say, man? It's a song about his daughter, and like there's no cap in it. He's just talking about how she's growing up and the things he's got to deal with, and even the dating scene and everything, and just his own challenges with raising a daughter. And then he puts it all together at the end and just says, this is what God does to us players. He gives us precious little daughters to get us back, for being players. And it's like, I love this stupid song, Daughters. It's one of my favorites, man. I had to put it on there. It's high up on the list. I never skip it, man. Never skip it. I love it.
I'm glad you brought it up. It was on my honorable mentions, and it hit me because I have a daughter. The things he's talking about, I lived through it because she's an adult now, the teenage years. And,
I bet, man.
He says, not saying that our sons are less important, but it's just something with a daughter. Kane, right? Such a dope song.
I had trouble not putting it on my list because,
Yeah.
because my little girl.
Yeah, I know. It's such a dope song. It just missed mine. So, top 3. And for the first time today, I'm going to an album that came out in 1996. It Was Written. No More Sophomore Slump. And I'm going with I Gave You Power. Like Rewind, another example of amazing storytelling. This is like Rewind. The first time I heard it, like halfway through, when you start realizing that he's talking about the point of view from the gun, I'm like, holy shit, that's next level shit. It's just, who makes a song from the point of view of a gun? People don't. It's done so well. Really great beat. This beat's by DJ Premier. And similar to Rewind again, you can listen to it 10 times and catch little things. It's like, it is just freaking amazing how great of a writer, lyricist he is. And to me, nothing will never be as good as Illmatic, but It Was Written was pretty close. I put it up there with Illmatic and Stillmatic as probably my favorite 3 Nas albums. So there was no sophomore slump. I Gave You Power. I would be surprised if one of you don't say that song coming up before we get to the end. Prove me right or wrong, Raven. What's your number 3?
I Gave You Power. I got it right here.
Proof.
That's
crazy.
DJ Premier, man. That's such a good fucking story, and just such a great story. Like that, I can't even say anything else really. From the minute I put that tape in and that song came on, I'm just like, whoa, shit. And I think oddly enough, later the same year, Shaquilla put out a song that's very similar to that. But I'm pretty sure Nas came out first. And I'm not saying Shaquilla stole that, obviously, because I do love my SCC in them.
Right.
But just I Gave You Power to this day is a top tier storytelling, just hip hop song.
And it's one of those things that are just missing from most hip hop nowadays, the storytelling. It's amazing. It's almost like you can't describe it in words. It's so well done. Such a great song. And it's bananas that our lists are always so similar. Kane, what is your number 3?
I gotta show everybody because I gotta like where is it? There it is.
I
Number
gave you
3, I
power.
gave you power.
Fuck yeah.
Like everybody has said, everybody did and does a song about using a gun,
Right.
but no one does a song from the gun's perspective. Like, I'm gonna jam in my owner's hand because I'm sick of killing people. And then he gets thrown away at the end, and someone picks him out of the garbage, and he's right back to like it's such a well done song, such an original idea. It's so good.
To not only have that idea, but to then execute it so well and so descriptive. I mean,
Mhm.
when he tells these stories, you can visualize it. He paints such a picture. It's just genius. All right, are we gonna get 4 in a row for I Gave You Power? What's your number 3, Diz?
I went with something newer, Death Row East. This is King's Disease 2, Hit Boy on the Beat, of course. And I feel like Nas is just arguably at his best when he's nostalgic. And of course, here he is talking about the Death Row beef and what it was like back in the day, like from his point of view and the visuals he saw and everything. And it's almost kind of spooky, just the way he brings you back into that vibe. Like, yeah, Suge Knight, man, used to be out here, and Death Row was a thing, and the beef was actually some real shit back in the day, and there's nothing like it anymore. And that was from Nas's point of view. I thought it was classic, and Hit Boy actually made it sound almost like a Death Row song, which I loved the vibe to it. So I gotta go with Death Row East as my number 3 there.
So we are at number 2, and this was so hard not to put number 1. You got to be honest with yourself sometimes. So it's number 2, and we're going to 2001 Stillmatic. All I Need Is One Mic. Another amazing example of picking beats, storytelling, whosever idea it was to start low, build, the beat builds, his voice builds, and just like till it gets, yeah. And then to start the third verse high and then go back down low is, I keep using the word genius, but I have it. It's a genius idea. I mean, what can you say? It's next level storytelling. One Mic always hits me. It always gets me hyped up. It's just amazing. One Mic is the shit, and it should be number 1. I just have a personal favorite as my number 1. But One Mic, and really, that's all Nas needs, one mic, and he can outdo almost anyone. Raven, what's your number 2?
My number 2 was Made You Look from God's Son. And it's mainly, I fucking love that beat. And that beat was hard as shit. And I never thought that I'd really get into Nas again after Stillmatic, because that was such a good fucking album after coming from Nostradamus and Queensbridge Finest, that I didn't think he was going to have it in him to keep doing it. And Stillmatic, and was so good that Godson, it almost paled in comparison, but over time it got really good. It's just I didn't like a lot of the beats on that album, but Made You Look, I think, is one of the best beats that Nas rides in his career. I love that fucking beat.
No, it's a really dope beat, and they drop the beat at the perfect time. The beat drops, Made You Look, just perfect amount of time, like whatever the 3/4 of a second beat drop. It's even things like that. It's amazing.
I remember doing that song for fucking horrorcore karaoke on horrorcore.com back in 2002.
Number 2, Kane, what is yours?
I gotta do One Mic also, and it's like you read the words off the paper I have. It is exactly what you said. When I first heard it, I didn't catch all those things, and I went back and I was like, he's bringing in each element in the beat, and as he's raising his voice, and then he gets to the end, he's like, da, 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 he just, and then that third verse starts out so hard, and he's taking elements away, and he's calming his voice down as he goes through it. It's exactly what you said. All he needs is one mic.
Mm-hmm. No, that's an amazing song, structured song. Biz, what is number 2 for you?
Number 2, Black Republican. Hip hop is dead. I love this record. Hip hop is dead, man. I don't know if it's my favorite Nas record or what. The way it starts off, you know, like him and Jay-Z are just taking their time, getting ready to rhyme, and you're just like, these guys are gonna rap together. Oh, okay. And the beat is just so badass, you know, the way it just comes through. It's in its entirety. And you know, Jay-Z does a fine job on it as well. But that song always gets me hyped like a mofo, man. I love it. Black Republican, man. That's my number 2 second favorite Nas song today.
And you know, that was something people didn't know if they'd ever see. You know, they were beefing, and just like I'm still waiting for that MC8 and DJ Quick collabo. But Jay-Z and Nas fans got theirs with Black Republican. Okay, number 1 on my list. It's just this. You have favorites. I can admit things aren't always the best, but you have favorites. And mine is off his debut, Illmatic. And that song is The World Is Yours. This was actually the first single off of it, but it just, the vibe, amazing lyrics. We got Pete Rock on the beat, and the scratching in the hook. I mean, this is mid-90s boom bap, East Coast rap at its finest. Go listen to the lyricism. It holds up today. The World Is Yours will always be my favorite Nas song. He could do a song about me, and it probably wouldn't make number 1. The World Is Yours is the shit. So that's my number 1. What's number 1 in your list and heart, Raven?
So initially it was going to be One Mic. And then I couldn't shift my whole list around. So One Mic just got taken off.
One
like
from
an
one
asshole.
and out.
Yeah, so that is like number 11 essentially. But because the same, I had to really look into myself and say, what is my favorite? If I want to put on a Nas song just to feel good, what song am I going to put on? And it's It Ain't Hard to Tell, but it's the Large Professor remix of It Ain't Hard to Tell, because that fucking beat, it's just it, you know, it sounded like it was supposed to be on the album. You know, that should have been the beat. And I think it was on either the deluxe edition of Stillmatic later or Illmatic, or it was on the remix album that he had put out.
I believe it was like the 10th anniversary edition had remixes to every song. And I believe that's where it was from, man.
And I love Large Professor's beats anyway. So, yeah, that's my favorite song. It Ain't Hard to Tell. I had the cassette single. I still have it in my storage unit. That's got the B-side on it too, I think. So.
Good pick. Number 1, Kane, what made your number 1?
Rewind. This is just another concept that hadn't been done before. And, you know, like I kind of said about One Mic, like the first time I heard Rewind, I remember thinking, what the hell is he talking about? Like, because I wasn't totally paying all attention. Like, what? Spit the nut back in his dick. What the fuck are you talking about? And I had to exactly do that. I had to rewind the song and like, okay. Like, and then I was just blown away that what a genius idea to do it. And it's done, like you said, it's done so perfectly. It's done so perfectly. And when you listen to it, you pick out new things. I was playing Stillmatic a couple weeks ago, and my wife is like, he's telling a story in reverse. And I'm like, yeah, isn't it dope? She's like, yeah. Look. And I was like, even his voicemail message is like backwards. I'm like, yeah. It's just, you know, it's just so genius. I guess I don't have a better word for it. Just so creative, you know?
And when he's talking about like what people said, he says it backwards. When he talks
shoot,
about
don't please,
shoot, don't please. The music they're listening to was going backwards, like a heavy metal, you know.
Yeah.
And they play the vinyl going backwards. It's like it's perfect. It's perfectly executed. And rounding it up, what's number 1 for you, Diz?
My number 1 song is Hip Hop Is Dead. I know he rocked that beat off of Street's Disciple. So it's the second time that he used that beat, but will.i.am, you know, brought it. And, you know, the beat is dope. Don't get me wrong. I love the beat. It's, what can you say? And his flow is perfect. But what he's saying in it is also like resonates with me, because he's like talking about how maybe it's not Like I'm not the way I'm seeing it is like hip hop isn't dead, it's just different. It's changed. Maybe the way you thought about it is dead. And I'm like looking at it, I'm like, I was there, man. I watched the transition from CDs to vinyl to tapes, all the way to this digital age, you know. And you honestly, a lot of hip hop did die in that transition, you know. A lot of artists were hurt. And I love the song. What can I say? Hip hop is dead. Number one Nas song for me.
I got a
was
funny
on.
story
Yeah,
about
go
that
ahead.
song. So here in Madison, we had a 106.7 hip hop station, and that song had just come out, and I had that CD in my CD player in my truck, and I'm driving along, and Hip Hop is Dead is on, and I wasn't paying attention if I was on the radio or CD or whatever. Well, then it's on again. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, am I on repeat? No, it was the last day that hip hop station was going to be a station. And for like 24 hours, all they played was Hip Hop is Dead. Just on repeat the whole like
Lazy.
yeah.
That's
Oh.
awesome.
Well, at first thought I was like, what is wrong with my CD? Like, what is going on?
That's
Crazy,
awesome
man.
that they did that. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. Yeah, that was on my honorable mentions. I love that song as well. So that is our list. As always, honorable mentions. If nobody brought it up, but I felt it needed to get some love, I'm just gonna do a quick shout out to it. Starting with a couple off of Illmatic that didn't get brought up. New York State of Mind, One Love. Knots is Coming off It Was Written. That's the Dre beat. We Will Survive, and Live Now off of Street's Disciple, like the AIDS song. Thief's Theme, I think it's a fun song. Ether, of course. And one more, I Got Dance, about his mother when she died, I think is a really dope song.
Yeah.
Did we miss anything? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I mean, I had KISSING and Nas is like on my list.
Yeah, no, that's like that was a good song too.
And then there was a track, I think it was on Godson, like Book of Rhymes or something, where he was just going through and spitting like little pieces. Like that was another one I had on there.
His
That was-
reject rhymes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was a dope
awesome,
idea
man.
though.
it was a cool idea. It was a cool idea.
Hero off the self-titled album. I really like that song. And then Watch Them off of It Was Written.
Mhm.
That was a song that was on my list that I had to move off because I was just like, I need another spot. Like it was Thug's Mansion or Watch Them. Like it was.
You know, I was going to say that the title track of King's Disease, basically the very first song from the whole trilogy, just bringing us Hitman and his chemistry, I thought was awesome. And one more, there was what was this, that song where he's playing like a detective?
That's on Hip Hop is Dead. He's like trying
what
to
is
find
that?
out who killed. He does that like
Who killed it? Who killed
who
it?
killed
Yeah.
it? Right.
Come on, that's so creative. It was awesome. So
It is. And actually, when I first heard that, I first was like, why is he doing that stupid accent? But if you listen to the words, it's really well written. He's like trying to figure out who killed hip hop as a detective. I mean, we've said it a million times. Absolute genius. He's one of the best. I think I convinced myself he is the best because he checks all boxes at a very high quality. So yeah, Nasty Nas. Nas is the man. I hope he keeps making music. Hip hop needs him. Hip hop isn't dead as long as he's got one mic. So that'll be the way to end this. All right, everyone. Thanks again. Another roundtable. Until we do it next time. Peace.
B-boy, from the old to the new, still a B-boy. Too bold for the school, still a B-boy. East coast to the west, B-boys worldwide, we supposed to be blessed. Still a B-boy, from the old to the new, still a B-boy. Too bold for the school, still a B-boy. East coast to the west, B-boys worldwide.